Okay, let's talk about how to turn your yearly income into your monthly revenue. And this is going to be a way of looking at things differently. It might even challenge your limits. So this is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, showing accounting firm owners how to be able to double their revenues while working half the time. And to be able to turn your yearly revenue into your monthly revenue has nothing to do with the size of your firm or being faster or even more experienced or having additional credentials. This happens when you start to tap into something you're already doing, but is so often overlooked. And this is about answering the questions, the guidance that you give your clients. And that's so much of that guidance where you're helping them because your client centered is worth at least $1,000 for that time. So that is what I call your $1,000 an hour value. And you're probably charging a fraction of that if you're charging anything at all, because so often firm owners want to be able to help their clients and they answer these questions, but they never get compensated for it. So we want to be able to separate it out so that you get paid for the value that you deliver. And this is a matter of starting with how you look at things, your time, your expertise, the guidance that you're giving clients to be able to move forward with their business. And when you do this, have this shift, this awareness, you connect with your value, it starts to be able to reduce the overwhelm. You're no longer undercharging for your guidance. And those clients who lean on you for everything but get bargain basement rates, this is a correction for them too. So think about the last time a client reached out to you, said, I have a quick question. And you knew that that question wasn't going to be quick at all. But you helped them, and it was a decision that they were struggling with. So they really appreciated your input on this. Maybe it had to do with a hiring choice, or possibly it was a cash flow issue, something about a pricing change, or possibly even a tax planning concern. But you knew this was not going to be that single sentence response. You were going to have a conversation. You were going to ask some follow-up questions. You were going to be able to help them with making a decision, looking at some various scenarios or angles. And as a result, they left with clarity. At the end of that 45-minute meeting, they thanked you, and maybe you charged for a quarter of that hour. But that conversation possibly helped them avoid a five-figure mistake, if not even more. And it's conversations like that that are worth so much more than your hourly rate and the amount of time it takes to actually answer their questions. They have, like I said, you help them avoid that five-figure mistake, even though it only took you 45 minutes. And you need to be able to charge for the value that they gain because that mistake that they avoided, not for how much time the conversation actually took. So I want you to start considering this from a different angle. Think about when your guidance, those conversations, even the ones that seem basic and easy to you, but your clients don't have that insight. They are getting clarity, they're getting direction, and maybe they're even saving themselves some costly mistakes down the road. And that is something that they wanted to lean on you for because they couldn't figure it out on their own, or they needed to have someone to help them look at it from a different perspective. And what percentage of those conversations that you've had over the past month have led to delivering at least $1,000 benefit to your clients? And it could be maybe a time saving for them, or it could be a financial savings or a financial gain for them. But think about how many of those conversations over the last month had led to at least $1,000 gain for them, whether it was time or money, because those are the two commodities that we're primarily dealing with. And this is something that was inspired because I recently had a conversation with Stacy. She is a firm owner. She was dealing with burnout from those long hours, answering messages over the weekend. That was a different conversation. And she was also squeezing advisory into her regular meetings without any additional compensation. Maybe you've experienced that as well. And during one of our meetings, we were talking about when a client of hers who was a manager wanted to be able to reach out to her and have a conversation about maybe hiring an additional manager for that company. And Stacy, she laid it all out for them step by step. With that, she was showing them the real cost of this hire. She helped them analyze the workload impact that it would have for that particular company. And then she came up with some financial scenarios. You know that she did some work, not just during the meeting, but probably before it or afterwards as well. And the fees that she charged didn't reflect that. So yes, it was going to be a meeting that maybe took about 45 minutes or so. And at the end, once again, the client thanked her, left the meeting with clarity about what direction to go in. And that person felt confident with the decision that they made about that new hire. But Stacy, she didn't get compensated for that value. She charged for the 45 minutes, a fraction of the value that that client received. So we had a conversation and we created some advisory packages. And we talked about how to have that discussion with current clients about advisory services and moving some of her quality clients that had a lot of questions, they wanted her insights and guidance into that particular package. So Stacy did that. And a lot of these clients who would just pay an hourly rate for having her answer questions, they were now getting strategic regular support. And she charged about between $900 and $1,500 for those packages. So that is something that you can do as well. And as a result of that, her workload reduced. And maybe in about 90 days or so, she started seeing these benefits. So her workload reduced. She was maybe saving about 10 hours a week. And also it increased her firm's revenue by about $60,000 a year for something she was already doing and currently giving away because she was either not charging additional for it or was occurring during meetings anyway. So once she recognized the value and then we created structure, she was able to have conversations with her clients about how to be able to move forward in this direction. So this is what some of the client conversations look like. A client reaches out and says, hey, can I have a quick meeting with you? I have a question about cash flow. And your first response, because your client sent it, is to say, of course, let's go ahead and take a look at things. And that is where the traditional response tends to lie with a lot of firm owners. They want to be helpful. Of course, they want to be able to answer questions. But let's look at this new version so that we can tap into your $1,000 an hour value. Once again, you had that client that reaches out to you with a question about some cash flow issues they want to discuss. And what you say is, this falls outside of the scope of our current work because it's strategic decision support. And when we meet, we'll go ahead and review your cash flow drivers. We're going to map out the next steps. You are going to leave with clarity and a strategic plan in order to move forward. If that interests you, we can discuss the investment and get it settled. So that is one way that you can go ahead and just use the script, the exact words that I just gave you. Here's another way that you can respond. Once again, you have a client that's reaching out to you because they're thinking about investing in a piece of equipment and they want to know whether it makes sense to make that investment or not. So you can answer with, that is a really important question. And it involves several factors, including cash flow, timing, maybe tax strategy, and also your financing options. So this is the kind of analysis I do in a strategic planning session. Let me walk you through what it looks like, the investment, and we can get it scheduled. So as I gave you these two scripts, once again, feel free to copy them word for word. Notice what's happening in these conversations. Instead of that immediate yes, you're guiding them forward in a very specific way, that this is something that is not included in the current scope of services that you do for them. And you're not pressuring them. You're not selling or pitching them into anything. You're just guiding them into that higher level advisory services. And this is the way as a firm owner to step out of solely the compliance, the reactive work, and into advisory services that are more structured and formalized and packaged for your clients. So I want to give you some thoughts about looking at the value that it creates for your clients. And there's three things we're going to look at. The very first one is insight. It creates insight. That's because you understand the story behind the numbers so much better than your clients do. They can't figure it out as well as you can. And they need you to be able to make sense out of what the numbers mean so that they know how to be able to move forward with their own business development. And think about it. When you look at that P&L, you can notice that maybe their cost of goods went ahead and actually crept up 3 percentage points. And it's something that just jumps out at you, but they have been staring at that P&L for months and never, ever recognized it. So that is one way that you are able to get focus on value is about your insights. You can see it, it's plain as day. They've been staring at it for months, never, ever saw it. The next one is interpretation. With interpretation, you can translate the numbers into something meaningful with them so that they actually know how to be able to take what you're doing for them, the discussion, and the next steps moving forward. So this is where clients start to understand the why you are telling them to do something in a certain way, why something is happening with their cash flow. And maybe once again, with that particular client, you are connecting the cogs and the increase to a new supplier that they had switched to in April. And now they understand why their margins feel tight. And even though there's been revenue growth, the cash flow just isn't really showing up in the way that they expected. So once again, you can help them understand the why behind the numbers. And then the third thing is implementation. So you can help guide them as to what the next best steps would be for them to move forward. You help them identify what to do next and maybe even what order. So you're outlining the plan and the steps one by one for them. You're taking something that feels very overwhelming, very abstract, and you're going to be able to distill it down in a way that makes sense to them so that they can actually implement. And possibly you are looking at, with this particular client, we would talk about the COGS, outlining 3 different options for them. They can either renegotiate with the current supplier that they have, they can return to their previous supplier, or they can go ahead and adjust their pricing. So you can now give them 3 options. And as a result of that, you're going to go ahead and help them evaluate what makes most sense for their cash flow, as well as their customer relationships. So doing this alone, giving them the insights, interpreting the data, and then coming up with that plan for implementation. This is something that is going to save them so much time, the heartache, the frustration, as well as make a difference because now they're avoiding some costly mistakes, or they're able to move forward and get an even better result because of the fact that they had that meeting with you. So you're able to do this for them because you have spent so many years understanding the story behind the numbers. And you're able to give them that insight and guidance in those quick conversations so that they can move forward and have it be a strategic, informed decision. But once again, it's not about the 45 minutes that you're spending with them. It is about the years of experience that you've accrued up to that time to allow you to be able to give them that information in order for them to make a strategic decision moving forward. That's why those conversations are worth $1,000 an hour, even if the meeting only lasts 35 to 45 minutes. So similar to every firm owner that I've spoken with about this, you may be wondering, will clients really pay for this? And I want to say your quality clients absolutely want the clarity. They want the confidence in the decisions that they're making, and they want someone that can help them make better decisions, especially about the financials, because money is a touchy subject. You don't just talk about that with anybody. So you are the person that they have a relationship, they trust, and they are able to have a very transparent conversation with you about the money part in their business. And once again, if you are looking to wonder if clients really pay for that, the ones who don't, that push back, are the ones that tend to cause you the most stress they have the most emails, they are blowing up your inbox, and often they have the lowest margins. You know who those people are. So charging for advisory services doesn't actually push people away. It lets you gain awareness about who is aligned with the value that you're looking to offer and about your expertise, not just the compliance side of what you do. Now, you might also be thinking, I already had these conversations with my clients. They're not going to pay me for them. And with some of those clients, especially the low value one who have a lot of meetings, a lot of questions for you that don't want to pay for that insight, that's true for them. But when these conversations tend to happen inside the monthly meetings or tax prep meetings, or when you're doing monthly bookkeeping reviews, they just get buried. Your expertise doesn't stand out and shine like it needs to. The value disappears in your hourly rate. And as a result of that, your clients, they don't really recognize what just happened because your hourly rate doesn't reflect that. So that is something for you to be able to think about. And as I'm talking about this, just think about what's coming up for you as you actually realize what's been happening. You've been giving it away inside of your compliance services. And as a result of that, people don't really see the full value of what you have to offer. But when we go ahead and package this as an investment, that's when the dynamic starts to shift. The client is going to prepare differently. They are going to show up with focused questions. You can actually go deeper into the pros and cons or the different things that need to be discussed with them. And at that point, the value is not just visible to them, it's visible to you too. And when your value is visible, because it's now packaged and it's a separate meeting, it's not just tucked into the compliance side of what you're doing, then it is sustainable and it's fair to them as well as to you as a firm owner. So that is something just to start to wrap your mind about. And think about what questions are coming up to you as I'm talking about this and you're contemplating doing this. So I want you to be able to look back over the last month and identify one conversation, just one, where a client made a better decision because of your insight and guidance. That is your $1,000 an hour value. So this week, let's do 3 things. Block out time in your calendar specifically for advisory conversations. And go ahead and label them differently than the other things that you do with clients, the compliance side. Go ahead and label these sessions differently, that time differently, and protect it in a way that you would protect a client meeting. So don't just give it away or think that you're too busy with the day-to-day and you need to be able to just fill in some work hours and you need that additional hour for the compliance side. So you go ahead and don't respect the advisory meetings that you set aside. Block it out, treat it with respect, and be able to carve out the time for it. If you have space, you're going to be able to start filling that space up with advisory meetings, which are so much higher value. So that's the first thing, is block out the time on your calendar. The second thing is go ahead and now and draft a very brief description about what happens in this kind of session. I gave you 2 scripts earlier that were some things that you can think about and maybe model as you want to be able to share this with your clients. And in the scripts, you want to maybe have 3 sentences: what you review, what you deliver, and what the client walks away with. So 3 sentences, it's a very brief description: what you review, what you deliver, and what the client walks away with. So now you're blocking out your time. You're going to come up with that 3-sentence brief description. And now we're going to be able to implement this when you have someone that's reaching out to you with a strategic question. So when someone's reaching out to you for strategy, they had a quick question regarding their business or how to be able to apply the numbers as they're looking to make a decision, then share one of those, follow the scripts that I shared with you today. Guide them into a paid advisory session instead of just answering it on the fly because you want to be helpful. I know you want to say yes immediately, but this is a way to say yes, but. So, or yes, and. And when you guide clients on their business, remember, you want to charge for that value, because when you do this and you charge for the value as opposed to the time, because they're tucked away into those regular client meetings, then you don't need additional clients to be able to increase your firm's value. So if this appeals to you, I'd love to know what's coming up for you, what you took away from this, where you are going to take that next action step. And if you want help with building the structure, packaging your advisory services, and value pricing so that you can go ahead and increase your revenues, reduce your workload, then let's talk. Go ahead and schedule a strategy session with me. What you need to do is go to businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk, and that gets everything started so we can meet and discuss how this would look in your firm. And when we meet, we will go ahead and look at your current client load, your pricing, your advisory value that you're already delivering, and map out what those next steps will look like for you, how to be able to charge fees that reflect the value of your expertise as well as your guidance, because your insights, the guidance you're already delivering, is worth at least $1,000 an hour, maybe even more. You're making a difference for your clients, and you deserve to get well compensated for that impact that you're helping them make. So let's go ahead and align your pricing with the value that you create in order to be able to have everything line up. And it is a win-win for you as well as your clients. Anyway, I look forward to our next conversation. This is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, showing accounting firm owners how to be able to double their revenue working half the time.